The thing has been hit. It says we're live. And hey guys, what's going on? All right, the secrets are being revealed. Fizz, it's not her fault that I went missing. I went on a field quest. We're reporting live here from the Physics Monastery, and I'm here with Mr. Thad Roberts. How are we doing, Thad?
I'm doing great.
So full disclosure, Thad had mentioned that if I was on a road trip or something, if I'm ever in the greater Utah area, come out to the Physics Monastery. So it was nice enough to put my lazy butt up for a few nights, and we had a nice seminar over the past couple of days, and my mind has been blown to either the fourth or fifth power. I'm still trying to figure out which it is, but we're here. We talked about a lot of great stuff. Got to meet a lot of great different people here. Got to play with some cute kittens and everything, so that's always a plus. But this has been great. Thad, just as far as the monastery goes, what are you looking to do with this? What are you looking to
We're
get
trying
out
to
there?
Formalize the goal of universal replication, to bring humanity to the point where we have machines that can universally replicate anything. And no matter how far out you might think that target goal is, we're trying to get ourselves completely aligned with it and on our way. So that's the main feature. That we're not making a claim how long it's going to take. We can't really predict that exactly, but we're going to do everything we can to be only on that path.
That sounds like a very noble goal. I mean, but before I came across any of your work, my Bayesian prior was more along the lines of, listen, if humanity, if we could get over ourselves, we get over like the hatred within our head and hearts and clear that cliche out, there's no reason we can't be in like a Star Trek style world within 1,000 years. That timeline, I seem to have been accelerated with this right now, just because I'm sitting back, I'm like, we could potentially have something like replicators in 50 years. What? That is freaking amazing. And that sounds like
and it's amazing on a level that's completely different than other things that are amazing. Replicators change not just it's a new big thing for us. It changes the way we conceive ourselves in existence, the way we go about our lives, the way we interact, right? It changes the yoke of existence. And that's a really big deal. That's something that everyone, I think, would be genuinely excited to participate in.
Well, ultimately that, and again, what we need to do in the meantime in order to get there, more formalizations, we're going to need the computational power, the coding, the engineering and stuff. And this is the beautiful part about it. This is something that most everybody can participate in as well. And that's why it's so exciting. Like, I'm just even looking at the chat right now, and we have a Dr. Rachel Lindbergh. She's like, I went to one of those fan expos with her. She was one of the folks that I met up with that I was talking about before. She's like, oh, Memes is at PhysicsCon. That's kind of cool. That's kind of cool, as well as Mr. Stoley. I haven't seen you for a while. I've had some deep philosophical discussions with him, and actually going down that route, it's interesting because I think one of the ways you kind of present yourself is as a philosopher of physics as well, which I've also even noticed that different folks, like even a Professor Sean Carroll, more recently, he took a position where his title is literally natural philosopher, which is it's fascinating because that's how a lot of science started, natural philosophy. And it just amazes me that a lot of these ideas in the past that some folks may say, that's crazy, you're insane, there's no way. It's starting to sound like they had a lot of insight that maybe at the time we didn't necessarily have the technology, the ability to measure things to a certain level of accuracy. We didn't have the technology. We didn't have these computers, the Internet of Stuff and Things, or Wolfram Alpha, all these different tools that if you went back and you were able to give a lot of these great minds of the past, whether it was Einstein, whether it was Noether, all these different people that contributed. And that's also one
of the data points.
Well, exactly.
The measurements themselves. It's taken us all this time to get equipment and to conceive for the measurement to begin with. Yeah.
Right. Well, and even we were talking a little bit before, like some folks like to throw a little bit of shade at different folks in the community. It's like, oh, Large Hadron Collider. Oh, did we really need to spend $10 billion? It's like, well, we were able to get confirmations, and with the more recent upgrades, if we're not throwing out like almost 40,000% percent of the, or 40,000, I think they report about 1 in 40,000, the data they actually receive, because they have so much data. If they can even get so much more, we can get even another decimal point or two of accuracy there. That helps tighten everything up. And that's the most exciting part, really. Okay, there's many exciting parts, but one of the most exciting parts about this particular model and the method, the universal binomial prescription for investigating this, it's a method that we can actually start to investigate what's going on. And it relies on the data. We need these experimentalists to get all these different data points and everything, because then we can start to construct new models, or perhaps even different computational models. I know one of the members, he's trying to get that library set up and integrated so we could simulate different experiments. So rather than having to spend 10 or 20 billion dollars on just getting something that's basically the same but just larger, we can do other things as well. But in order to also model that, rather than spending maybe that 10 or 20 billion dollars, what if we could take those resources and be like, well, what happens if we start colliding these things at 90-degree angles, 45-degree angles? Might we find something else that's interesting there? And that'll help us computationally model that as well. And just,
once you have the model of how everything fits together and all the dynamics working, so you basically have the physics model in a geometric prescription, then you now have the ability to look and just start saying, well, what about this? And oh, wow, look at this. The fact is, you become aware of something you weren't aware of before. Like, we weren't aware of the electron in our deep past, right?
Yeah.
And the impact of not being aware of the electron is very obvious to today, right? To all of us today. But it wasn't so obvious back then. And we have the same exact transition. We're not aware of how the inner gears of quantum mechanics are going on. We're not aware of those boundaries even being there. So we can't take advantage of them. But if we get the right model, if we're able to actually correctly, geometrically copy and reproduce everything here, but we get that model from the data points, from the measurements of what we believe reality actually is, not from the stories we've tried to put it together so far that have notoriously failed.
Well, and that was always one of the interesting things that I found about like quantum mechanics, because there was always, people would phrase it as, there's a black box. It works. We don't necessarily know why it works, but from these past few days and over the past year or so, it sounds like we're getting a glimpse at how it works. And that is just so exciting to me. And I think it's going to be exciting to a lot of people as people start to find out and everything. And again, we're not saying this is right, this is everything here. Could be wrong, could be, but we have a method for investigation.
A very clear method that everybody can exactly apply. We've done it together, right? And when you apply it, you end up with what? Not an exact truth claim. You end up with a set of things that meet the conditions that would qualify as telling the right kind of story. And it might be down to one thing left, and then you would have high confidence that that was the one thing. But if it had 4 or 5 things, that you'd have to keep track of them all. Still, this method allows you to investigate not just one constant in nature, not just one property that we've measured, but all of them. And when you investigate all of them and you collect the clues and answers you get from all of them, the picture reveals step by step and gets more and more clear.
Right. And that's even, I see you there, SSM and Fred, good to see you all. And people seem to be freaking out a little bit that I don't have a beard right now. It's okay. It will grow back. It will grow back at some point. I remember even Kyle Hill at one point, he had shaved, and oh my God, I think I commented on it too. But was it Doc Rachel was even saying sometimes postdoc findings are even more exciting than the hypothesis you began with. And that was the thing. What was it? Wasn't that long ago. I remember I had gone in and I had done your calculation for the muons G factor and everything, which was basically how I had come across you, because I remember Nolan, shout out to Nolan. He had actually introduced me to you. I'm like, okay, go over there. I'm also over on Twitter, theoretical physicist. I like those things. Click, follow. And then I was out for a run one day and it's like, oh, source code 7, listening to this. I'm like, oh, this is fascinating. I'm like, all right, well, if half the stuff this guy is claiming is true, this sounds like it's revolutionary, but I take it with a grain of salt. I'm like, she's a dude on the internet. I'm a dude on the internet. And then the next day they came out with the muon G2 results. And I'm like, I didn't know how much of a big deal it was. And I'm hearing the gentleman there. He's like, this is our Mars lander roadmap. It's like thousands of people, years of effort and everything. Oh, this is kind of a big deal. And I'm listening to it. I'm like, I'm not sure if the muon prediction was something was in your model, but doesn't sound, it's okay, Joe. It's okay. Oh my God, the cats are a constant. But, and you were like, yes. I'm like, all right, that's cool. I come home, look at the Fermilab website. I'm like, okay, go back to your Premier source code 7. I'm like, dude, man, nailed it. He predicted the muon G2 results. That's when I really started to pay attention. And when I was going to Wolfram Alpha, I did the original calculation. I was able to do that. And then I went back with the update of 44, the second edition. I noticed the equation was a little bit different because it looks like you had taken the experimental results and you continue to explore, and you found something that, in my opinion, was even more beautiful. I believe it was it Ramanujan's first continued fraction, something like that.
I think that was what was in there before. Yeah, now it's what lemniscate.
Oh, you had it's updated again. It's okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. That's the thing.
Yeah, I mean, you do this over and over. I've started over, and I told myself, I feel like I haven't been systematic enough. Because when you're asking each question with Wolfram Alpha, you have to be aware of listing all the numbers it's not aware of. So you ask each question, they have them, like in a matrix, pull out each question, each number, so that you've fully asked the question of Wolfram. And you know, it's easy to miss some powers. It's easy to have an intuition that, oh, I don't need to keep going there. It's not going to be that direction, and to have not done them all. So this time I sat down to let me start all over again, write down all the things I need to ask of everyone. And it took weeks, I think 3 weeks, which for me is phenomenally fast. The fastest it's ever been, but it was also the most systematic. And you see what changed. It got simpler, more beautiful, and more connected, and we can tell more of the story. Are we done? No, we're never done. The point is to get the clarity we need to actually start taking advantage of modeling it, constructing something off the model, right? Yeah.
And then,
so this is where we're at.
Yeah, and being able to apply those applications there. But well, SSM, you're saying that science equals witchcraft. My claim is more along the lines of something I learned from Professor Brian Keating, which is a quote from Arthur C. Clarke. It's that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Because you think back in the day, if all of a sudden you had this technology, you were able to do something that the people in the world had never seen, and that's still even the case because you're telling me stories about different.
GPS is magic.
Well, that's the thing. It's like I still remember having to, even just with the early internet, print out something for MapQuest. I'm looking, I'm like, oh my God. And now it's to the point where it's like, I put some things into the thing. I can even speak it onto a cellular phone and it gives me directions. 100 years ago,
that would have really looked like magic.
Oh yeah, no, people would have no idea what's going on, but it works and it helps make our lives better. In some ways, we were talking before the show that spell check has ruined my ability to spell. Like even I'm typing in Physics Monastery, I'm like, okay, I know I'm spelling this wrong. Spell check, save me here. So it does help, but we also need to remember our humanity and stuff as well. We don't want to get deviated too much as well. And that was actually some of the best conversations I've had here as well, trying to figure out the current paradigm we're in. Because a lot of folks, and don't get me wrong, I'm sure there's a lot of humble rage merchants out there and they're peddling their rage can. And you know what? Hey, somebody needs to make fun of the Disney Channel. I'm sure that's plenty of reasons. I know, whatever. But a lot of stuff that's going on, it's like, that's why I kind of got drawn to this, because there's all this yelling and everything, and it turns a lot of folks off. And I think a lot of people, I think they're just kind of doing it because they see other folks doing it and they think that's the only path. And what excites me most is this opens up a new path, a new opportunity, a new way for humanity to help, I would say, level up. The shirt's over there. I'm currently wearing the one with the hyperbolic vortex equation. But it is true, in my opinion, that this is something that everyone can help be a part of. And even the folks here, I mean, you folks are some of the first folks saying this, and maybe, yeah, you're just a crazy dude on the internet. And I am a crazy dude on the internet, but even crazy people notice things. And what I'm getting away from this is, and do future videos and try to break it down more systematically, so people here, the people that are watching right now and temporally in the future, can be a part of, can help explore the computational universe utilizing Wolfram Alpha, or even ways that we haven't even conceived yet. Like I'm sure there's a way to do this via Mathematica and the different notebooks.
Mhm.
I'm trying to
We're
slowly
trying to
learn.
actually set something like that to automate
Yeah.
the process ourselves. But yes,
Yep,
there's
that's
plenty of people with the skills that I don't know that can contribute in all kinds of ways. I'm sure I can't even imagine.
right.
The amazing point is that we have a method that allows now everyone to make their attempt.
Right. Well, that's the thing. The people that are communicating in the chat right now, yes, Gilbert, I do have eyes. Good to see you. They do exist. That Dr. Rachel is like, science only stops when you stop asking questions.
Yep, beautifully said.
That's the true.
Beautifully said.
Welcome, Sherry. It's good to see you as well. Yeah. No, GPS even 20 years ago. I mean, I think that was pioneering technology and stuff. You look at just what's happening. I mean, anybody that grew up with AOL that remembers that dial-up tone of like, it's still one of those things. It triggers me. It triggers me so bad just because I still remember those days. It's like 30 minutes. I connected to the internet. Oh, somebody picked up the phone. No! And you look at now, it's like just sitting here. I'm utilizing literally a book of magic here to help project from another part of the country to people all over the world on YouTube, on Facebook. I'm like, oh my God, it absolutely blows my mind, but it's fascinating. Oh, it's good to see you too, Car. I can neither confirm nor deny that. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. But well, that's the hey, SSM. Don't worry about math. I was terrible at math. I swear the system just moved me along because I was either a nice guy or maybe they just needed to move me on for numbers' sake. But this is the thing that got me, and I think you had mentioned this too. You said never really a math guy. You liked.
Well, I think it's good to point out regularly to everybody who feels frightened by math that that's the regular feeling. Math is this field of things that you're blind to, so it feels impossible because you're currently blind to it. You have no idea what's going on. All the parts of math that you do get feel just easy, and the parts you don't feel impossible. The good news is that, you know, as of recently, the last 5 or 10 years, more recently, the best stuff. Just the math explainer videos that are online now that weren't available 10 years ago or 20 years ago. You couldn't interface with the topic with an animation, right? I mean, it's amazing how beautiful it is. I think if you go into learning math to just discover its nuances, not necessarily feel like you need to pass a test right away. Don't go in judging yourself. Just go discover the nuances, because every little trick found in math, every discovery, every proof is actually a proof of logic, and that opens your mind up to a new fact of reality. So it's a daunting task, just like learning to write. You know, is very daunting when you're a child. You have no idea what's happening first. You don't even see the incentive right away, maybe, right? But if you can find the incentive is our own humanity, right? Mathematics are basically a collection of discoveries in logic, and everything that you hold as a discovery in logic, you can then utilize.
Well, that's the thing, and SSM has come around. He's like, I like this guy. I totally hear you, and I can confirm that because when Thad was nice enough to pick me up at the airport at like 1 o'clock in the morning, first thing he does, he gets out, gives me a big hug. I'm like, all right, he's a hugger, I'm a hugger. I think this is good. But also one of the other things too is we were talking a little bit before. I almost feel, because this is how kind of mathematics kind of start. It was logic. We were using logic, and SSM. I would recommend. Maybe go back and watch one of the more recent videos right before the site uploaded about Professor Stephen Wolfram, because he's a contributing reason why I'm here. Because I asked him, I'm like, Dad had said, oh, if you come out here, just let me know ahead of time and everything. I'm like, well, this is something I've never really done before. I mean, I studied business. I lift things up and put them down and stuff. I asked him, like, well, what would happen if you had the opportunity and the means to do something that you really wanted to do, even a little bit later in life? Because I'm not really a spring chicken anymore. I'm pushing it 40 or so years old. So it's like, but he's like, what I find is if you have the passion, this is paraphrasing Wolfram here, is that basically he finds that those things often work quite well. But you have to have the passion for it, because what you can use is your knowledge from those other areas. And in some ways, I think he said it's almost an unfair advantage, because a lot of folks, they're used to, well, this is the way we do things. And I think it was Mr. Stonley, you were saying that and again, I'm not sure I completely agree with that, but saying that science isn't science anymore, I think a lot of it is consensus, and consensus, it is important. But I think the issue we run into is if everyone's kind of saying the same thing and we're all going in the same direction, might that blind us to things and potential opportunities that we could explore? And this is what's really exciting about this to me, because again, I see a lot of equations and stuff in the book, and I'm like, oh, I've never even seen that notation before. Like I just found out like what a dilogarithm was like a week or so ago, just because I was looking up the notation there. And I'm like, what does this say? I'm like, okay, I've heard about logs and logarithms and everything. I would play a little bit about log, but it's only so much time. But we're exploring these things, and you start to see the connections. So it's like if you can do life science, if you can do earth science and stuff like that, just take some of the concepts here. So it's like, okay, we got the crust of the earth, we got the mantle, you got the heavier elements and stuff on the inside. That's logic right there. You're utilizing what you know, and there are ways that you could help extend that into other areas. And again, it's just, I think one of the big things that you were saying is we want people that are interested in contributing and just getting more human consciousness on that. Because I mean, we're both computationally limited. We're only going to be around for so long. So we're going to need other folks helping out and just even noticing something, even if maybe they want to roll up into my DMs or something and be like, hey, Memes, I kind of noticed this thing here. Take a look at this. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And again, I'll notice things and it's like, maybe there's nothing there. Maybe it's just a dead end. But unless it's investigated, and especially if we have the tools now to investigate them ourselves and try to get meaning, and it's like, because I'll see something, I'll be like, okay, I find this output in Wolfram Alpha. I'm like, okay, copy this. I'm like, let me plug this into Google for a more generalized search. I'm like, okay, like kind of like we were talking about the Hagridon temperature and stuff like that. Like, oh, this number is kind of interesting. Like, that's kind of the alpha Feigenbaum constant or delta Feigenbaum constant. I'm like, that's interesting. Maybe there's nothing there. But it's also fun.
Breadcrumbs, right?
Mm-hmm.
The cool thing is when you get a breadcrumb that's for math, right? Like this series fact. You take all the even numbers and divide it by all the odd numbers. You get a product of an infinite series of fractions, right? But every single fraction is slightly larger than one. It gets closer and closer to one as we go, right? It starts out 2, but it gets closer and closer to 1. Still, you can see that as we multiply more and more and more, it has to sail off to infinity. It's always getting bigger and bigger. This one, if we get rid of the 1 and slide all the odd ones over 1, and now all the fractions are slightly smaller than 1. And as we multiply them together now, it's going to get smaller and smaller and smaller and go to 0.
Right.
But if we take both of them at the same rate, so this one here and that one there, and this one here and that one there, and this one here and that one there, we keep going, multiply both of these series at the same rate, we get pi over 2.
That's interesting.
That's interesting. So even if you just leave it there, if you just notice this strange fact, how did pi come in when we only had whole numbers? We only used integers. Where did this come from? These breadcrumbs are mind-blowing at first, right? Well, they're probably always kind of mind-blowing, because if you do understand it, they take you to another way of thinking. So they are mind-blowing. Anyway.
Well, that's one of the things that I think we were talking about a little bit the other day. I'm like, I'd never really seen this. Maybe somebody talked about it, but I don't remember really being introduced to this in school as far as mathematics go. Just even those two things right there, I'm like, why does like half a circle come in here? That seems very interesting. But and the fact that it's interesting probably would have helped get me more into math at a younger age and stuff. If we can introduce folks earlier on, especially as this becomes more and more formalized, introducing folks and getting kids interested in learning and being able to utilize the wonderful tools that we have now to help explore what might they find out. And I look at what kids do with like just Minecraft nowadays, literally just 3D cellular automata of different types doing different things. And they're building all these magnificent castles, these worlds, people literally building entire galaxies, quote unquote, universes and stuff like that with it. I'm like, you take that passion and that knowledge, because what are they doing? It's like you've got this particular stuff. Has different categories, different things associated with it, and it helps do different things. And you can combine those things together into making just such beautiful, beautiful artwork models. And I feel like that's highly related here. And I'm excited once other young people out there, again, more formalization required, kind of start getting into this. I'm pretty sure there's going to be somebody that's probably in grade school or something like that's going to be able to make such amazing contributions to just humanity as a whole, and that's exciting for me. But
Very exciting.
Yeah,
good times are coming.
Yeah, that's great. Well, power to. Oh, I see you there, Snacks. Another friend that come with me to the con as well more recently. But yeah, this. Yeah, no, there are no. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Sometimes there are just happy coincidences, and that definitely does happen, and that's why we need to have that data, that actual experimental evidence and stuff, to actually try to figure out what's going on. Because ultimately, it's like, well, if we can try to help reveal the secrets of our realm of persistence, I mean, that's something that can help all folks. And just to kind of bring it, we've been going for about half an hour, to kind of bring it full circle to the ultimate goal of the monastery is, if we can actually develop replication and stuff, the ability to kind of almost like out of, was it Back to the Future, where Doc Brown comes back, it's like, we need to fuel this reactor. What are we? Garbage. Just throw that in, things that are literally just, we're paying people to take away and stuff like that. If we can actually recycle those things, then we can actually achieve like a true post-scarcity society.
Yeah.
In that, if we don't need to worry, if humanity on general just has a basic means of existence, people not having to worry about where the next meal is coming from, that's going to change the game with just us as a whole, rather than having to be like fighting over how much resources and stuff we can get. Mm-hmm. I mean, it completely changes the conversation and our perspectives with one another. We can actually try to focus on creativity, ingenuity, different ideas, and actually have like true human conversations to try to help us reach the limit. I mean, sky's the limit, space is the place.
The world worth shooting for.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But yeah, Minecraft equals a billion blocks of life. That's fun. It's oh well, I mean, that's a very flattering statement. I really appreciate that, T-Car. I mean, be careful with that. I'm a total narcissist. You can continue to inflate my ego as much as you want. But I see Prometheus as well. Yep. Yeah, hey, HFA 8 is the place, man. As far as I can see, it seems to explain a lot right now. It seems to explain a lot. Yeah, that's nice enough. He sent me that little poster and stuff, and hopefully print that out soon, and I'll be able to have a nice board, and people will be like, "Oh, look!"
We'll see how well your comprehensions come along.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to give it a shot,
yeah.
But
I look forward to hearing your words. Sometimes I get more clarity just hearing you say it back. So
no, thank you so much for hosting this. What do we figure? What this was building the future on purpose. Mm-hmm. This particular conference, it's exciting, but.
Yeah.
Well, we won't
go. Thank you very much for coming.
No, thank you for having me. Final thoughts for the people about the monastery, just anything in general.
Remember, everyone else is seeing the world from their lens, and as we find a better lens to occupy, mm-hmm. we make the world better for each other.
I think that's the absolute truth, man. Because that's the thing. I noticed a while ago, and one of the reasons why I handle the means of destruction, because, well, I wanted to be one of those edgy boys too. Means of production was also taken in all its relevant forms. But as far as that goes, I noticed, I'm like, wow, a lot of folks seem to be, I don't got a problem with criticism, but there seems to be a lot of meanness. And I just sit back, I'll hear people's arguments, and I'm like, okay, that's an ad hominem attack. Okay, and just my derivation, and again, I'll bring us back up after I bring this down. I think a lot of folks, they just don't like each other, or they think they don't like each other for a particular reason, and then they try to connect all these different things, and that just kind of makes me sad. But things like this gives me hope. And we were talking about earlier that the vast majority of folks are good people, and they're just kind of going about their lives doing what they think is what they need to do. But if you give them the opportunity, if you show them a path, that there is a better path, that they can contribute, that they can be a part of, that people will remember what they did. And that is the beautiful part about the internet. Because remember, my friends, rule 2 of the internet the internet is forever. Because I'll be gone. I'll be atoms to atoms, dust to dust. We all return to the Earth's crust, unless you're Shoemaker, which was a fantastic story that we'll get into some point or another. There, it's true, because I think a lot of folks, they just want to do something impactful. They want to have meaning.
Impactful.
I see what you did there. I didn't even mean to do that, but have meaning in life. And this is something that it fills me with hope. It fills me with meaning. And that's something that I want to share with all of you. So, hey, thank you all for tuning in. Peace out, everybody. Be safe. And hey, here's to humanity leveling up.